Welcome to the See-Through Podcast, a podcast that creates transparency on disabilities and the champions with them. I am the host, Lance Johnson, and I live, create, and podcast from Brooklyn, New York with the vision impairment, retinitis pigmentosa, or RP for short. Speaking of RP, my guest today, Cate Elam, has it herself. Cate and her family are the founders of RP Hope, an organization that is a place where the public can visit to find information about retinitis pigmentosa. RP Hope also serves to educate both the public and RP patients on the disease. And as someone with RP, I obviously love meeting people in the RP community, especially those who are actively shaping the future of the community themselves. Cate was recently diagnosed with RP when she noticed symptoms during a transnational cycling tour that went from Amsterdam to Rome. That journey took 28 days and exceeded 1,200 miles. And during that journey, Cate noticed some little black splotches that dotted her vision. Those black splotches eventually led her to her RP diagnosis. We'll definitely dive deeper into that story coming up. But before that conversation officially begins, follow or subscribe to the podcast on whichever streaming platform you're currently listening on, and make sure to follow the podcast on social media. The handle is at @SeeThroughPod. And now that you've done that, here's my conversation with Cate Elam. Enjoy. Cate Elam. Did I get that right?
Yes, you did. Bravo.
Where are you?
I am just outside of Amsterdam in the Netherlands.
Yeah, so it's kind of funny. Like, before I started this podcast, I had no connections with Amsterdam or the Netherlands. And it just seems to be like, from what I can gather, it's some good people over there.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, in terms of RP, there's a ton of innovation and the Netherlands is like kind of one of the hubs for research for RP, which is really, really coincidental, at least for me.
Yeah, exactly. Because that's where ProCure is, and I have interviewed them. They've done a blog post about me and all that. You should check them out.
Yeah, definitely will.
So you talked about it being coincidental because you have RP.
Yeah.
So. That brings me to the next question is like, you have RP, I have RP. Where are you at in the stages of RP and let's just hear that.
Yeah. I'm still definitely in the early stages. Just seeing like little classic spots and stuff and night vision and all that. Which for me isn't super new. That's something I've been living with most of my life, and now I just can connect it to a disease and a diagnosis. So we're still kind of in the planning phase, right? We have a fundraiser going on for a nonprofit for RP. It's just trying to build money for treatments and hopefully finding out some more about my genetic mutation. So I'm really lucky that right now I'm not in the I'm affected, I'm going blind or extremely visually impaired phase. I'm in the preparing for that. So it's overwhelming, but not, I know that it will only get more overwhelming, which is a tricky thing to think about.
Oh, it's very tricky. I deal with that on the regular. I talk about that on the regular. Just how old are you?
I am 18. You keep forgetting.
18, yeah. Yeah, okay. So when I was 18, I don't even know if I was experiencing anything, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Or if I was experiencing anything, I don't remember being able to pinpoint it to RP.
Yeah.
And like, I know everyone experiences it differently.
Yeah.
You know, I've met people who are basically, you know, completely blind at 18 from RP. So it's kind of bizarre. And like you said, you feel lucky, you know, which is odd to say, right? You're like,
Yeah.
I'm lucky to have this rare genetic disease.
Yeah.
There's a lot of weird mental things you got to wrap your head around, you know, like, but I think that's a good perspective to have, is to feel lucky, to not take it for granted.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people do take it for granted.
Mm-hmm.
Even people who are fully blind probably take for granted, you know, things like with other disabilities might not take for granted, you know?
Yeah, for sure.
So what brought you to the Netherlands? Were you born there?
No. I was born in California and lived most of my life in California. I had a brief period in Texas. And then freshman year, we moved here for my dad's work.
Freshman year, okay.
Mm-hmm.
And what does your dad do?
He works with medical devices. There's so many coincidences in my life that that feel just a little bit like magical, and like the universe has a part to play. Because along with like the Netherlands being one of the hubs for RP innovation, California is like the other. They both kind of work in teams. So that part was really shocking and actually really great to find out. And he works with medical devices, so we're lucky that like when doctors give stats or scans, he understands, or he knows the right questions to ask. So I'm really happy that like I can walk into a meeting with a doctor and like feel kind of prepared, because I have a very knowledgeable father to help me out.
Yeah. So you're 18, you're born in California.
Mm-hmm.
You move to the Netherlands your freshman year of high school. When were you diagnosed with RP?
It was my junior year, beginning of junior year.
So you were probably, what, 16?
Yeah, it's kind of a haze. I had just finished doing, so along with my dad working with medical devices, he loves biking, and that's why it's great we're in Holland, because all you do is bike. So the summer after 10th grade, right before 11th grade, about 11 or so family members, including myself, biked from Amsterdam to Rome. We charted off 28 days, and it was so much fun. But part of that was also my introduction to RP. That's when I first started noticing all the symptoms, the spots and whatnot. And as junior year began, which was pretty monumental, because like those are the grades that matter, and the school that I go to also offers the IB program. So there's just a ton.
Yeah, I'm familiar with IB.
Yeah, there's a ton going on. And that was also when I went in and found out about the diagnosis. So I really don't remember like all the specific details.
So it sounds like you don't have a family history of RP.
No.
It was just a genetic mutation.
Yeah, we have rewritten the family tree hundreds of times now, and there's a lot of eye issues. Like, it makes sense. My grandpa had something with like cataracts or something, and my dad's side of the family's also had pretty bad eyes, but nothing with RP.
Yeah, unfortunately, both sides of my family, both of my grandparents or grandfathers have macular degeneration and have cataracts.
Yeah.
So I'm in my mind, I'm like, please don't give me that too.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
You know, don't duel me up here.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
But apparently cataracts are pretty common for people with RP.
Yeah. It's lovely.
Yeah, but luckily, from what I know, that cataract surgery now versus even like 10 years ago is like night and day.
Yeah.
So it's not quite as big of a deal.
Yeah.
But yeah, my grandpa, he gets like a shot directly in his eye, like a needle, like that's a couple inches long, and you know, they just straight in the eye. What's that?
Is it more than once that he has this occur?
Yeah, I think he has to go every
couple
months, and they inject something in his eye, and it kind of solves, or like steadies his macular degeneration.
Yeah.
It's kind of bizarre.
Oh, that's terrible.
And I know that's, yeah. And I know that's how they do, like CRISPR and like Procure, how they kind of get into the eye is a needle like that. So
Yeah.
it's kind of nuts. So
Yeah.
we will have needles in our eye,
I know.
apparently,
Yeah.
at some point in our life.
Waiting to wrap my head around. I'm going to just save that for a little later.
Okay, so no family history.
Mm-mm.
You're in high school.
Mm-hmm.
You were on a transnational like cycling tour.
Yeah.
And you were going from Amsterdam to Rome.
Yes.
And it's called the Big Ride 2.0.
That was the name we coined it. Yeah.
It's a cool name.
Yeah.
And it's a 28-day bike ride trip.
Mm-hmm.
And you travel over 1,200 miles.
Yeah. Yeah. Some number like that.
That sounds really fun.
It was incredible. It was, obviously I've never done something like that before. And after doing it, it actually made like replicating that so much easier. Right before going on the trip, it was like, this is some crazy thing that no one does, or at least does just once in their lifetime. And we're actually planning Big Ride 3.0 right now for Norway, which will be super cool if COVID figures itself out. But yeah, it was incredible just to travel like that through, because I've been through these countries a bunch of times, like plane or train or car. But via bike was completely different. We met some really, really cool people that we would have just missed if we were traveling on a different route.
So how many people go along on this ride?
It started off with 13, and they were all aunts and uncles and cousins of mine. And then I think 2 or so stopped riding about halfway through. And so I think we ended up with 11 riders in Rome.
Okay.
Yeah.
And was this just simply like a vacation type of thing, or was it for like a cause or anything, or was it just for fun?
Yeah, no, it was just for fun. The reason I hesitate saying vacation is because we were like, there was a day where we biked over the Alps, which was incredible, but it was like 6 hours of like just uphill. And part of me didn't really feel like that was a vacation. But yeah, my dad had done a trip like this with an aunt who'd gone on the trip, his cousin, and then 2 uncles of his when he was 16 across the US. And originally, before we moved here, that was going to be the plan. We just do that trip over again when I'm 16. But we moved here.
Yeah.
Decided Europe would be such a cool location. And that's why it's 2.0.
All right. Okay.
Yeah.
Your dad's really into biking, and he kind of
really
sparked it. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So during that time, you're going from Amsterdam to Rome, long 1,200-mile trip, about a month worth of bike riding.
Yeah.
You were noticing a few things with your vision?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we were in the sun the entire day, and I saw the spots and really wrote it off as just like exhaustion and dehydration. And it persisted even after the bike riding stopped, and Holland became gloomy and gray again. So that's when I went in to ask for, I thought it was so unexpected, the diagnosis. Well, when you were diagnosed, did you expect anything like it?
Well, I have a different background because my mom has RP. Yeah. So it wasn't that big of a shocker for me, because it was kind of like almost expected that I would have RP.
Yeah.
So they were like looking at my eyes from a young age, probably before they even would have.
Yeah.
Like, for example, I haven't actually thought of this that much, but say my mom didn't have RP and I didn't know to look for it, I probably wouldn't have been diagnosed with it until my like early 20s.
Wow.
Is probably when I would probably have been like, wait a second, like this isn't normal.
And when were you diagnosed?
I was diagnosed when I was like 12.
Okay. Wow. So it's like a decade.
Yeah. Wow. But, I look back on things and maybe I was affected and just didn't want to contribute it to RP. Mm-hmm. And that'll probably happen to you. You'll probably, years from now, you'll look back on things in high school or, and you'll be like, was that because of my RP? Like that that happened.
Yeah.
Like something I think about all the time is like, I grew up playing like Little League baseball.
Mm-hmm.
And I was pretty decent. I'm not trying to hype myself up. I was pretty decent.
Nice.
And I was kind of like a good like batter. Like I was a good hitter.
Mm-hmm.
And then I played baseball all the way up until high school, my freshman year of high school.
Mm-hmm.
And I just started, for lack of a better word, I just sucked at baseball. Like I would constantly strike out.
No.
I was playing first base, and if the ball wasn't like thrown directly to me,
Mm-hmm.
I'd probably like, I struggled like catching it because I couldn't find the ball.
Yeah, yeah,
And it's things like that
yeah,
that like I could just be bad at baseball and just didn't want to admit it.
yeah,
But it makes me feel better about myself to think that, RP was kind of what made me
yeah,
not be able to see the ball, and therefore I wasn't as good of a batter.
yeah.
So I don't know. I'm just going to say it's RP's fault.
There we go. That'll be the great excuse, the great solution.
But things like that will pop up. You'll be like, was it because of this? Was it because of that?
Yeah. Yes, I am. I just finished up the high school play, and like walking around backstage, I've always had trouble like blackout scenes, and now I fully understand why because of RP.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you just graduated high school.
No, I'm so close. I have like, I think about a month and a half.
Okay. So you're still in high school.
Yes. Yeah.
That's good. That's good because, I like to talk to a variety of people,
Yeah.
and ages. And I think it's valuable to hear all sorts of perspectives.
Yeah.
And that's why I keep asking you all these questions, because I'm trying to figure out exactly where you're coming from.
Yeah.
So you're 18, you're finishing up high school,
Mm-hmm.
grew up in California in
Mm-hmm.
the United States, been in the Netherlands because of your dad's work.
Yeah.
Did a bike ride, noticed some things, were diagnosed around 15, 16.
Mm-hmm.
Now you're 18,
Yeah.
and you have organization called RP Hope,
Mm-hmm.
and that's how I know you.
Yeah.
I know you more as RP Hope
Yeah.
than I do as Cate.
Yeah.
So like, tell everyone about RP Hope and how that came about.
Yeah. So it's a nonprofit, and we are aiming to just raise funds for treatments and for research projects looking into RP. It's a very new nonprofit. It's still in its baby years, and at the moment we're doing our first fundraiser, and there's parts of it where we're really successful and super proud of how many people have already joined and how much money we've already raised. But there's also definitely parts where when we do another fundraiser, we will retweak that. And so RP Hope has that same feel. We're so proud with like the team that we're building, the board, and how it's great that I'm in Holland because I can be connected internationally. And so there's professors and doctors here that I never would have met if I was still in California. But I also have some really amazing people in California that we can connect to RP Hope.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's super cool. As someone who is a part of this organization, what is your role within RP Hope?
It's it's going to change when school finishes for me. Right now, it's getting really busy with the final few weeks, and so I've had to step back from my usual role. When RP Hope was first being built, I was tasked with like marketing because we wanted to start a foundation for RP related to RP in some sense. And we were also still trying to figure out like what its mission and goals were. So at the time I was looking at like what types of foundations would be helpful, like what foundations are already existing that would be better for us to just like push others to, but what foundations or nonprofits are still kind of needed, and where would like researching and funds best be used. So right now my like marketing role is not as frequent, but I've kind of become the face. They're using my face, and like I am at least for my family, the catalyst for this. I'm the one in my family that has RP. So I will probably continue with some type of marketing, spreading, talking to people, sharing stories,
Yeah,
hearing
yeah,
their
because
stories.
that's why I was surprised to hear you were in high school, because I was like, your face is you're the face of a nonprofit, and I'm
Yeah,
like, whoa,
yeah,
but hey, that's cool.
yeah, yeah,
I think you're in a good spot. So it sounds like your parents kind of, especially your dad being in the medical field,
yeah,
they kind of took it upon themselves to start this organization, and they called it RP Hope.
yeah, yeah. Hope is so my grandma, my dad's mom, uh was just like this indescribable woman. She was absolutely incredible and so optimistic, and she was one of those people that when you talk to her, you could tell, like, you felt like you were being listened to and understood and cared for, like even if you were a stranger. She Yeah, and just so magnetic as well. And one
Yeah, those people are rare.
Yeah, really. And one of her key sentiments was hope. So we've kind of paid tribute to my grandma to name it that.
No, that's cool.
Yeah.
I like it. I like it.
Yeah.
So it sounds like you're finishing up school, and once school's over,
Mhm.
you're kind of going to be taking over this nonprofit. Kind of,
Yeah.
you're going to be, you're all ready to face, but then you're going to be
Yeah.
the CEO essentially.
That'd be a cool title. Yeah.
Okay. I think I got my head wrapped around it now.
Good.
Like I said, I always do a little bit of research before
Mhm.
I talk to people. It kind of helps me have things to bring up.
Mhm.
And we were talking about the Big Ride 2.0
Yeah.
earlier, and how that's kind of the initial spark that kind of made you realize something was kind of up with your vision. But before that ride happened, you kind of grew up traveling. You kind of grew up
Yeah.
kind of in a different, as you put it, a strong emphasis on travel.
Yeah. Yeah.
Can you talk about that?
Yeah. My first international trip, I think I was in 5th grade. My parents have also always been super big travelers, so I'm super lucky that they kept that emphasis even with their kids. I have a twin brother. I don't know if you found that out in your research.
Nope, that slipped through.
Nope. Okay, cool. Yes. So me and Drew, my twin brother, yeah, we've always been traveling, and done the big European trips. But obviously, it heightened when we moved here. I think probably one of my most influential trips. My school offers a learning service program. You do some research and planning in Holland, in your home country, and then you travel to a new one to kind of share what you've learned, or you're helping do manual labor. And they offer a number of locations. And I went to Nepal 2 years in a row. It was this really great program where you, in Holland, about 6 months prior to the trip, you plan lessons that you will then teach in Nepal. And you're there for about 10 days teaching elementary school kids kind of just the basic subjects. But it was just so incredible. And seeing new cultures and meeting new people, and I mean, feeling like we were making a little bit of a difference. We eventually added onto the program that we would help improve how Nepalese teachers were also teaching their lessons, so that the stuff that we brought was a little bit more lasting than the 10 days that we were there. So yeah, that was one of my best trips I've been on. Yeah.
Yeah, and how old were you during that?
I went freshman year, and then I went as a 10th grader. So
Okay.
like 14 and 15, I think.
Cool.
Yeah.
So it sounds like you kind of like, helping others is just
Yeah.
the natural part of who you are.
Yeah.
So it kind of makes sense that, in a sense, what's kind of cool about RP Hope is that you're helping others and you're helping yourself,
Yeah.
So like, I think about that too, like with this podcast. I'm helping others hear perspectives, but it also helps me get learn and grow. And
Yeah.
when I talk to people, I like learn things about myself that I didn't even know. It's kind of interesting.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure that's going to be a common occurrence for you as you
Mm-hmm.
graduate and start getting out there.
Yeah.
You grew up traveling, and so it comes as no surprise that you would do some sort of Viking trip like you did.
Mm-hmm.
During that trip, we talked about you saw spots in your vision. Like,
Yeah.
what did those look like?
When I first saw them, I thought they were just bugs. Also, like Europe just gets infected with like the biggest bugs ever in the summertime. So at first, I looked a little crazy and I would try and swat at them, and I realized, no, it's just vision spots. But yeah, it kind of just looks like little flies going around.
That's interesting.
Vision, yeah.
And I saw that you were diagnosed with what's called non-syndromic
Mm-hmm.
non-syndromic RP.
Yeah.
I have no clue what that is.
Yeah. It just means there are types of RPs that are also affiliated with other syndromes. Yeah, I'm forgetting the name of the syndrome, but it affects you also mentally as well. So I don't have that one, which is good.
Yeah, because I know there's things like Usher syndrome.
Yes, exactly. I think
So yeah, it's interesting hearing like, because I've never had like symptoms like seeing flies. Like I have floaters. I have
I
like
think that's what I'm trying to describe. Yeah, and they're like little
it's
black spots that you see, or like dark.
mine are more like I like to describe it as like you close your eyes and you rub your eyes a bunch,
Huh.
and then you start seeing like crazy flashes
Yes.
of lights.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
I have those 24/7.
Oh.
I know people listening are probably like, man, that must be crazy annoying.
Yeah.
But to be honest, you get used to it.
Yeah. You really.
You don't even, and you don't even notice it anymore.
Yeah.
It can intensify, and I don't know if I'm making this up or if it's something that I personally experience, or if I'm overthinking it and making it true. But if I am dehydrated or I am working out and I'm like, my heart rate's up,
Yeah.
it will intensify. Like my vision will be worse.
Huh. Yeah, that's not the same for me, but that's really neat.
Yeah. Or if I'm tired, like I don't get a good amount of sleep,
Yeah.
my vision will be poor the next day.
Yeah.
It won't be as good.
Yeah.
My eyes will be more sensitive.
Okay. Yeah. My I think floaters would be an accurate term. The floaters that I see actually intensify during certain like angles of light or certain brightnesses of light. So like right now it's kind of dim outside and cloudy and there's nothing. But if it were to be a lot sunnier, I'd see them a lot.
Yeah, cloudy days are kind of nice.
Mm-hmm.
And I've learned that I walk around when it's cloudy out. It's kind of overcast and real soft lighting.
Yeah.
And I'm like, this is nice. This is easy on my eyes. And then the bright. It's funny because I like love the sun. I love sunny days.
Yeah.
But there's, comes with a catch,
Yeah.
I have to have a hat on. I have to have sunglasses on, or
Yeah.
my eyes just are like, it's like staring into the sun without it,
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So it sounds like you sound pretty well aware because you have RP-HOPE. You described it as a genetic mutation. Like for example, when I was your age, I wouldn't have described it as a genetic mutation.
Yeah.
I would have said something like something's wrong with my eyes. Like really unintelligent comment. That's probably how I would describe it.
Yeah.
So it sounds like you're kind of up to speed on things. And have you had genetic testing?
Yes. We've actually. Do you mean? Yeah. I think we had to, right? Because we found out the gene. Sorry, we've done a bunch of tests, and I usually get confused with what was what. But yeah, that one was tougher because I fell into the like 30% of RP patients whose gene isn't yet determined. So I still don't know what the exact cause is, and that's still something we're trying to figure out. But yes, I have. Yeah.
Did your family also get tested?
Yes, my parents did, and they found out that it was just a fun little concoction of their two genes that gave me what I have, which is slightly frightening because I also have a twin brother, and we're still trying to decide if he gets tested or not, because it does change life and how you look at life. And
Yeah, that's why I was asking. That was what I was trying to figure out. It's like if your brother had been tested.
yeah, we he heard the results of my parents, and we've kind of let him decide what his next step is, and at the moment he said he doesn't want to.
Okay. Yeah, that's interesting because my last guest I interviewed, Michael Tubiak and Steve Johnson, and they have a YouTube channel called The RP Show, and I didn't really get to talk to Steve about it. I plan to have them back on, but he'd said that his parents knew that he had RP, but they didn't tell him.
Yo, for how long?
I think it was like until he was like 18 or something like that.
Whoa.
So I don't know. I'll have to ask him about that. But yeah, it's interesting how certain people deal with it. And personally, I think it's nice to have the choice.
Yeah.
But I think the sooner you accept it, the better. You know, you'll probably agree with this. It takes time to accept it. Like, and I don't even know if you ever truly accept it.
Yeah.
But I do know for a fact that you get more accepting of it over time, because your mind just naturally will think about it even when you're not doing anything. Yeah. Like even when you're not thinking about it, you're thinking about it, you know? Yeah. It's, you know how people like say they have the best thoughts in the shower? Yes. I think it's like that, you know? You'll just have these sudden epiphanies here and there about like, you know what, RP won't be that bad. I just need to learn the XYZ. I need to learn. I need to get O&M training with a cane and learn all these tech's improving. You know, there's a lot of treatments being worked on. Yeah. You know, like it's nice to have a hope. You know, like for example, RP hope. There you go. You got to keep your hope, but at the same time, you also have to learn to accept it. As it is, and in the current time and current day. Yeah. Because you know, I feel like if you are looking too far down the road, you know, I mean that people say that about everything. Like, don't live in the future. You know, you know, and I think that's what I'm learning about RP is that like I feel personally, this is me talking. Yeah. I feel better when the more I learn to accept it as it is. You know. Yeah. Well, and also in this position, like sometimes that's the only option. I when I tell people about my diagnosis, and then still tell them what we're continuing to do, I've often heard like, "You're so brave. How do you do it?" And it's kind of because like that's kind of the only option is to adapt, to accept, to understand it and stuff. And I also feel like it makes like the carpe diem mentality, it's easier to do that because you realize like the future will be different. You can't live in the future. Yeah. Right now is the time to do stuff, you know, because this is the best it's going to be. Yeah. I mean, it's the best your vision will be. Exactly. You know, but yeah, I think, yeah, the carpe diem's a good example. You know, I think about that sometimes. It's like, should I do this? Should I go to this? Should I try this? And I'm like, I do have that thought in the back of my mind. It's like, yeah, I should do it because like there might be a time when I can't do it. You know, exactly. And I mean, even if you're perfectly sighted, it's kind of like you never know. Yeah. What could happen to you? Yeah. So. But RP just kind of is like a punch in the head to kind of say like remind you of human fragility and how our bodies are kind of how certain parts of our health are out of our hands. Yeah. You know, we were just born with it. We're born with this. Like there's literally nothing we can do about it. Yeah. You know, and you know, And like we talked about at the beginning of the episode, it's like you said you felt lucky.
Mm-hmm.
I advise you to keep thinking you're lucky.
Mm-hmm.
You know, even if your vision gets completely gone.
Yeah.
Because you got to have vision growing up.
Yeah.
But, you know, the beauty of RP, again, why I think me and you are especially lucky is that it's a progressive and it slowly diminishes over time. I know the pace can change vary from person to person, but
yeah,
you know, I'm 30, I'll be 31 in August, so like, you know, I can still get around New York City.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how rare that is for RP. I don't know. I don't really know what's common.
Exactly. It's tough to say there is a common for RP. There's just like anecdotes and experiences that people have, but it's tough to say there's something that like reoccurs.
So, you know, going back to your twin.
Mm-hmm.
So you guys are obviously the same age as your twins.
Yep.
Are you identical twins or fraternal?
No, my brother. Yeah.
Identical?
No, fraternal because he's a dude. Because he's a boy.
Oh my gosh. That's proof. Everyone listening, that's proof that I'm not the smartest guy. Take what you want from what I say.
Yeah.
You can't be identical, even though you're opposite sexes.
No, because like identical.
What if you look very similar? Like
But
I've seen
I'm
that.
not the same gender as Drew, or like the same. So it's physically impossible. Like either he has to be a girl or I have to be a boy.
But do you look alike?
I mean, I'm gonna say no. I think every sibling is gonna say they look different from theirs, but we have like same facial features.
So you're basically identical.
No, like he has wavy brown hair and he's like 6 inches taller than I am, and I don't know. I don't think I'm guessing like if you were to meet him, you'd be like, oh my God, you guys look exactly the same. But I don't think we do at all.
All right. So you have a semi-identical twin.
Sure.
You know, that's what I'm gonna go with.
Okay.
And that's your only sibling, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he doesn't know if he has RP or not.
Yeah.
And he's not experiencing any symptoms or anything like that.
And that's partly why we've kind of accepted that he doesn't want to get any tests.
Okay.
Yeah.
You know what you should do?
Mm-hmm.
You should just, while he's sleeping, just take some blood, you know?
Okay. No,
take some hair.
Okay. Yeah.
Take some hair from his brush.
Yeah.
You know?
He sheds a lot. I could easily do it.
No, I'm just messing around.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's interesting because, you know, like depending on what you've learned about your parents, like for example, the strain of RP I have, the only reason I was able to discover,
mm-hmm.
I was like you, like initially they couldn't figure it out, right?
Mm-hmm.
I had too many matches or whatever.
Okay.
But I have an older brother, I have an older sister, and like I said, my mom has RP.
Mm-hmm.
So to figure out my strain of RP, my mom was genetically tested, and then my sister was genetically tested.
Mm.
They, just like me, had multiple kind of potential mutations that could account for RP.
Okay.
But there was only one commonality between us three.
Mm.
So that's how we figured out our strain.
Yeah.
So it's kind of interesting.
Yeah. Well, why wasn't your older brother tested?
Just because he doesn't he doesn't have any symptoms, you know?
Okay. So that was
in my
choice, sort of.
Yeah. So what happened with my sister was she went to the eye doctor.
Yeah.
And they just like me, I just went to the eye doctor, standard ophthalmologist, and they were like, you know, with the knowledge that my mom has RP, they look a little deeper into you.
Mm.
And they noticed in my sister what they noticed with me, and then she went to a specialist and then was confirmed and diagnosed.
Yeah.
My brother just never was referred. You know, he went to the eye doctor. He's lucky. He has like 20/20 vision, and
oh man,
you know, doesn't even need like corrective lenses.
What a light!
Like yeah, like without my glasses, I'm like, I want to say my vision's like 2200 or something like that.
Off the chart.
Yeah, it's a real.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's bad. Like so like I need glasses, and
yeah,
But, so my sister's diagnosed with RP. She's living with it. My mom is legally blind from RP.
Mm-hmm.
My sister's older than me, but I think I experienced more symptoms than her.
Okay. When did your mom go blind? Like fully?
Well, she legally blind. I think she was considered legally blind in like her 50s.
Okay.
Yeah. She was a school teacher. She worked an entire career.
Mm-hmm.
Retired. I think she quit driving when she was early 40s.
Okay. So she was able to like see you guys.
Yeah, and she still can see us. Like, it's just she has the tunnel vision,
Right.
And yeah, she's able to see her grandkids, which is cool.
Yeah, that's really cool.
So yeah. So growing up, it's funny. Like, I've always like knew my mom had RP, but
Mm-hmm.
she wasn't like blind. She wasn't like, can't see a thing. Like she could see, and like I remember her driving. I remember the sun would be going down, and I could tell that she would get a little more anxious, and she was trying to like rush to get home.
Yeah.
And as a kid, you're like, don't process it when you're like elementary school.
Yeah.
I probably still could drive
Mm-hmm.
if it wasn't like in a major city.
Yeah.
And if I lived in like a small town and I had like a really simple drive to and from work, I could probably drive another 10 years maybe. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's hard to say, but
Yeah.
I got to the point where I would be like a nervous wreck just driving around.
Yeah. Yeah, that's still a decision I like need, right? 18's kind of the year people start thinking about cars and license and stuff, especially in Europe. And it's still like a decision I haven't made yet if I want to do it or not, but I think I'm probably going to stick to your type of approach for like bigger cities. Also, usually bigger cities, there's public transportation. Like, this as well. Subway's great in New York. You don't really need
exactly.
a car.
That's why I moved here.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'd say like with your vision, the way it sounds is like, get a field vision test, and,
Mm-hmm.
and if you're good to go, you're good to go. Just be a little more cautious.
Yeah.
I drove a car till I was 27, but we got a little off topic there because I was going somewhere. I was going somewhere with my comment. So we were talking about my brother and sister, but my particular strain, to bring it up, is essentially I have a 50% chance of passing on RP to my offspring. So I don't know if you were able to pinpoint that with your genetic test.
Not necessarily, but they do know that my like mutation is heritable. So it's something I've like not actually thought about, but like somewhat hypothetically thought about. Yeah, it's
yeah. You could probably figure that out based on if you talk to a genetic counselor, she'd probably be able to tell you.
Yeah.
But my point is, like, your brother may not have it, There's probably a strong chance he doesn't have it if he's not experiencing symptoms.
Yeah, especially.
Because my brother doesn't have it, So, with that said, it's like, do you ever get like, this is a personal question, do you ever get jealous of your brother potentially where he doesn't have RP?
Yeah, that was actually a question I wanted to ask you. I was literally thinking the same thing. It's a loaded question, right? It's like not one I can easily give like yes or no. There are definitely times where having RP sucks, and those around me that don't have RP, I'm jealous of. But I mean, because I'm still in the stage of just having like the floaters, like my life really hasn't drastically changed, at least like daily habits and such. It's now I just like have a label for all the stuff I see or have already seen for years. So it's not as common, but also like all the ways I do have to adapt, like in any dark setting, it's super, super hard for me to see. But that's been the case for about a decade now. So I've always found little ways to compensate for that. And And because now it's just like automatic, it's not even something I pinpoint and get jealous over because it's now normal. So less so, but also like because of RP, I get to meet cool people like you, and like at the moment, no.
Yeah, okay. No, that's a good way to be. That's a good way to be because I don't think it's ever healthy to. I don't think jealousy is ever healthy. But it is a natural emotion,
Yeah,
and it is something that I feel like it's easier said than done in terms of suppressing sometimes. I can't help it sometimes. Like I'm
yeah,
110% happy my brother does not have RP.
yeah,
But just every now and then, am I like thinking that, like, does he truly know how different his life would be if he did have RP? I think that sometimes.
yeah,
I'm like, could he do his current job? Could he have his current lifestyle?
yeah,
And I think your family and you have a lot of things in common, but having RP is a huge differentiator, and that it'll always be a differentiator. It'll always be something that will separate you and your twin
yeah,
in terms of having a different life experience. So,
yeah.
what are your thoughts on that?
Oh, well, yes, I was going to add, like, jealousy is not necessarily a common emotion that RP's brought about, but I do notice I get more frustrated with people who take things for granted.
Oh yeah,
Or
that'll never go away.
yeah, yeah, because it's like you don't even know like how good it is, right? Or maybe you do and you just don't show it. But I've noticed that that's like more frustrating, having RP now.
Yeah, and I think on my podcast, I always talk about not just the visually impaired, but the disability community
Yeah,
in general. And what I've noticed is the disability community, and I always harp on how adaptable
mhm,
the disability community is, but I think even another thing that I should address more is how aware we are of the things we are grateful of,
yeah,
because we're kind of faced with, it's not like, oh, it's fine, I can just start that tomorrow.
mhm,
It's kind of like, I can't do that task in general.
yeah,
And then there's people who are just like, I just don't feel like doing it today,
yeah,
and then they put it off
yeah,
because they know they can. And I know that's not the most like articulate way of putting it, but so yeah, I think that'll be something you constantly think of in the back of your mind, and you'll meet people that will just completely frustrate you
yeah,
with their mentality and perspective. But that's fine. Use it to your advantage. Use it as like a propeller,
yeah,
to not waste moments and not be stagnant.
yeah, precisely.
I always feel like I'm giving advice on this podcast.
Good advice. I'd love to hear it. Yeah,
I feel like I'm talking to myself too. Like I'm talking to you, but at the same time, I'm like trying to figure out stuff for myself as well.
yeah,
And it's like a free flowing thought.
yeah,
Yeah, I think you're doing good. I think you have an organization. I think keep one thing I didn't do is besides my mom, I didn't really mix and mingle with people with RP or vision disabilities. So I think the more you talk to people in the vision disability community, the more comfortable you'll feel with yourself and having RP.
yeah,
Because that happens every single time I talk to someone. I leave the conversation understanding myself more,
yeah,
and feeling more in control, because when you're younger and you don't know much about what's up ahead, it's like very gloom and doom.
mhm,
I used to freak out when I was your age
mhm,
about it. I used to imagine this dystopian future where I'm like roaming the streets and I can't see I'm like completely blind, and wasn't able to wasn't ever to get married. I wasn't able
mhm,
to do anything, and like no one wanted to help me, and I'm just completely alone and
yeah,
in my apartment, and I can't see anything, and like sad and miserable existence. And I think that's just such a dramatized perception of an ignorant perception. Like when I was younger, I had such an ignorant perception of what a blind person's capable of doing or what their life is. And that's another thing when I talk to people and they're like even completely blind and they're just like crushing life and having fun, enjoying themselves. And I'm like, what was I thinking? Like, people act like, you talked about people saying you're brave and all that.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm not trying to discredit them and not trying to say you're not being brave. It's really like we have no choice,
Exactly.
like you said.
Exactly.
I don't know where I was going with that.
It's good advice.
I guess I just wanted you to hear my thought on it when I was younger.
Yeah.
And how much it's changed from then and now, and it's okay to be bummed out about it.
Mm-hmm.
Don't let toxic optimism.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I think that's what it's called.
Toxic positivity.
Yeah, toxic positivity. Yeah, don't let that shit poison your mind.
Yeah,
you have the right to be bummed out about it.
Yeah,
and to kind of go through your emotions on it and the spectrum of emotions on it. You'll have good days, you'll have bad days. That's completely fine. All right, that's the end of my rant on that. But going back, we were talking about you biking.
Yeah.
You have RP Hope.
Yeah.
You're planning, you even touched on it, you're planning on doing what you're calling the Norway 3.0.
Yes. Yeah, possibly Washington State.
Okay.
I don't know. We're going to look at COVID and adapt.
My point for that is you're taking essentially donations for that.
Yeah.
So people can donate to help support the Norway 3.0, which is basically a different version of the long bike journey you took when you were first diagnosed.
Yeah.
What are where does that donation money go?
We are looking at research grants that we want to fund. So, one of the professors that I work with, that I do testing with in Amsterdam, is part of, I'm not going to describe it correctly, but he's part of some like cool research, fancy science group where a bunch of researchers come together to say, this is what I'm trying to learn. These are the types of treatments I'm trying to create or discover. And they meet in this cool little room and say, hey, can I have some money to do this? So we've been given contacts for some of those people that talk in that room. And we're trying to decide like which treatment we wanted to support at the moment. But the money will go towards something like that.
Awesome. And where can people find that and learn more about that?
So as we're trying to build the trip, we're also trying to see if it's even viable, like if we actually can do this. So at the moment that that area to put money, that grant basically is not yet created because we're still trying to figure out if we can buy plane tickets to go to Norway. So we're still kind of tentative if we're going to even be able to bike at all. So at the moment, we don't have a spot. Yeah. That'll probably change in the next week or two. We have like some deadlines to kind of say we're going, we're not going. This is when we decide. At the moment, we're still trying to figure out what the guidelines and rules are for Norway.
Yeah, I remember I saw on your website there was kind of like different packages and amounts you can donate, and that's rphope.org, right? If you're listening and you want to check out RP Hope's website to learn more about where to donate money, what their goals are, learn more about Cate, learn more about her family, you can just click on that link, and it's a fast way to jumpstart your research there.
Yeah.
Speaking of your website, I need to kind of toot my own horn a little bit. I noticed I was featured on your website.
Yeah.
That was like a pleasant surprise.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, there I am.
Yeah.
That's cool. But yeah, so you're a fan of the podcast.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. I love this setup of just talking to people and discovering that you don't know what you're going to discover. I love that.
Yeah, that's my favorite part of it. It's just like It's all my favorite. I'm not doing anything new. Like there's a lot of podcasts that have this formula, but
Yeah.
I've always enjoyed this specific type where it's just conversational and you kind of, as a listener, you kind of feel like a fly on the wall, you know?
Yeah.
I think we covered quite a bit. Is there anything about RP Hope that we missed?
No. Yeah, I'm so grateful that you're putting us in the description. That's wonderful. And it'd be great if more people can check it out.
Yeah, I think it's awesome. And I think it's always good to have people to have looking out for your best interest. And, you know, I got to support organizations like RP Hope because, you know, I have RP. So,
Yeah.
you know, and it's good to have a different variety of organizations. Like, you know, like I'm starting to get involved in Foundation Fighting Blindness. And, you know, I've talked with companies like Procure, and there's just a ton of different organizations. And I think the more variety out there and the more people focusing on different topics and different researches and treatments,
Yeah.
you know, the better, you know. So it's good to support all these places and organizations. And, you know, speaking of organizations, I like to close out each podcast episode. I like for my guests to give a shout out to like a nonprofit or organization that they are into. We talked a lot about your organization, RP Hope, but do you have anything else in mind?
Yeah, Foundation Fighting Blindness is also just such a monumental nonprofit that needs as much support as it can get. And so if people are hesitant to go to RP Hope because it's just one disease, go to that one because they are doing so much right now.
Boom. Foundation Fighting Blindness. Yeah, I agree completely. Yeah, well, I think that does it for the episode. And it was fun getting to know you, Cate, and I'm rooting for you. I hope Norway happens.
Oh my God, me too. It'll be fun.
I hope you've been training for it. You know, I hope be in shape for it. But yeah, Cate, thanks for chatting with me today.
Of course, thank you.
All right, bye. Well, that's a wrap on episode 31 of the See-Through podcast. Thanks for listening to my conversation with Cate. If you're interested in learning more about RP Hope or Foundation Fighting Blindness, just click the show description link and I'll have some links there to their sites ready to explore. And for those of you new to the podcast, I release episodes every Sunday, so I hope you'll tune in again next week. As always, I very much appreciate you listening. And if you haven't yet, make sure to follow the podcast on social media. The handle is @SeeThroughPod. And if you want to do me a huge favor, rate and review this podcast on whichever streaming platform you are listening on. Also, subscribe to the YouTube channel. And for other info on the podcast, just visit seethroughpod.com. And until next episode, stay transparent, everyone.